Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak, Patrick Kerrane, as we get ready to preview the entire Week 9 slate. We're going to go in depth on some of the week's most interesting games, including the Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears, the Arizona Cardinals hosting the Seattle Seahawks. At least I hope they are. I've been getting those wrong lately. We'll also touch on all of this week's hot button fantasy players. But first, we're going to go back to a topic we've talked about many times. Have any of you, we're 5 games into the World Series. Have any of you finally watched a baseball game this year?
5 games for real?
We're 5 games. I thought it was 4.
Well, when people are listeting to this, it's going to be 5 because tonight's game.
I thought it was 2.
We are live. We're live on Twitch. Check us out.
That's true. We are live on Twitch. But yeah, Game 5 of the World Series Thursday evening.
Astros still cheating? They still do that?
I tweeted the other night after they hit 2 early home runs. I tweeted the cans are trashing tonight, and the Astros fans were not happy.
Guys, listen. I am not a baseball thought leader. I've tried to be. I couldn't cut it. I will say this. And this might make Pat's head explode. I don't know. I don't get why that was considered cheating. What the Astros did.
What do you mean?
What?
I don't care. I'm with Denny on this.
Weren't they using cameras to steal the?
They were using secret cameras to steal the pitcher and catcher's signs.
Otherwise known as the television.
About as clear cut as
no, cheating. It was actually they were not using TV. They actually were using secret cameras.
They could have. Right, I think actually they do play it on a delay now, but up until recently, it wasn't on a delay. You could have cheated in that way, or the time the catcher dropped his play sheet or whatever it would be called. And the base runner just picked it up and walked off as if that's cheating. I'm sorry you used paper and pen to write down how you're going to beat us. Tough luck.
All right. Well, I backed down from that because I didn't know there were cameras involved. I thought it was just people banging on trash cans. All right. Never mind.
What did you think they were banging on trash cans for?
I thought they were saying, okay, we figured out their system and now we're going to bang on trash cans to tell you what pitches come in. And I was like, what's the big deal?
They did figure out their system by illegally stealing.
With illegal camera use.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, they should have been relegated then.
At least I hope it was illegal cameras.
Agree. How are they already back in the World Series?
They should have. The MLB should have ended the Astros franchise. In that
My friend tried to get the hashtag "Take the Ring" going.
Yeah. No. You have to take that. You have to take the ring.
And the thing is, they're using physical hand signals, sign language, to signal pitches, right?
Not anymore, actually.
Yeah, they have a little buzzer or something, a little dog collar where you buzz him if he's been a bad boy. They use those now.
Well, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the F1 world is up in turmoil right now because Red Bull has been caught cheating as well. They went over the budget cap. Now, the budget cap was just recently installed, but they were over the budget cap in their championship-winning season last year and this year, and it barely any penalty. These buttoned-up Brits, they refuse to punish anyone.
Brits love financial crimes. They would never punish anyone.
They don't.
No,
so I just want to be clear. I've gone from what did the Astros do wrong to everybody on the Astros World Series team from that year should be in prison.
So
hey, this man is willing to change his mind.
It's good. Yeah, that's true. More people
shockingly willing, in fact.
Not flip-flopping. No, it's this new information.
That's
real quick.
His priors.
So because of all this, I'm a big baseball. I am rooting for the Philadelphia Phillies, but I've been accused by the Phillies fans of costing them Game 4 because before Game 4, I tweeted, "Phillies country, let's ride."
Oh, no, dude.
And many Phillies fans were unhappy with my choice of tweet.
All right.
I put the bad Russell mojo on them.
Pat, you are also relegated.
I should. It was a really, really, really irresponsible tweet. I was at a stoplight driving with my parents to watch the game because I really like baseball, and I couldn't help but tweet "Phillies country, let's ride," and didn't really think about the ramifications of it. And we were all paying the price today.
Yeah, wow.
But now on to football, the only sport you guys care about, except for apparently F1. The only fun team in football, the Miami Dolphins, head on the road as 5-point favorites in Chicago. Kerrane, we'll talk about those Dolphins in a minute. But we must begin with the Bears, who sold on defense but added on offense at the trade deadline, acquiring Chase Claypool for the price of a second-round pick, forgetting the real-life implications like Claypool's upcoming need for a new contract. What does his acquisition mean for this Bears offense?
Well, I think the real-life implications here are pretty interesting, not in terms of the contract stuff, but just real football. Claypool, he has not been good in terms of fantasy. He's not been good in terms of his receiving efficiency. Is just a 16% target rate. He has a 6.5 yards per target, which is very bad. He has 1.03 yards per out run, which is the lowest amongst the Steelers' main receivers and also a very poor mark. But like weirdly, he's drawing a lot of defensive attention. This year, he's been double teamed on 29% of his routes among wide receivers with 200 plus routes. He trails only DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, and Jamar Chase in double team rate. So I guess the defense thinks this guy's dangerous. So that could maybe open up some opportunity for Darnell Mooney. Maybe Cole Kmet. I wouldn't be chancing Kmet this week, I don't think, but I think maybe Mooney. The thing about Claypool is he has 0.94 yards per route run against double teams, which is terrible. So you can take Claypool away, and teams have been taking him away. But I do wonder if maybe this opens up the offense for Mooney, for Fields, and maybe generally, like maybe they're able to get the run game going a little bit more if, teams are respecting the passing game more. I don't know. So that's, I think, a little bit interesting from like a real life perspective of how this could help the Bears passing offense. I don't think Claypool will be super interesting on the Bears.
It is. Probably all four of us think this is a positive for Darnell Mooney, right? Where we know sometimes it can be kind of easy to galaxy brain, like, well, actually this guy coming in is good and not bad because he's going to be commanding targets. But I mean, Darnell Mooney, defenses weren't accounting for Equiminius St. Brown or Dante Pettis. Like, this has to be good for Darnell Mooney.
Right?
Where there's someone the defense actually has to account for. Maybe he'll finally have more space underneath, and maybe some more space. Darnell Mooney can make big plays deep. Are we 4 for 4 on this is good for Darnell Mooney?
No.
Oh,
No.
wow.
Okay. It's such a small pie we're talking about, right? Like Darnell Mooney has a big chunk of the pie. What is going on in Chicago is my question. And now Claypool comes in and maybe takes some of the pie. All right. So Mooney goes hungry. I don't know. I think that it's probably not good for him. Kerrane's argument is probably more convincing than mine, but
well, no, it is always such a fine line. Like, is this guy going to hurt this guy's target opportunity? Or maybe even if he decreases Darnell Mooney's target share a little bit, they're higher quality targets. It is kind of hard to like suss all that stuff out.
Right. And I mean, the Bears have been dropping back more. So maybe that's the overarching good thing for Darnell
I think it's good for Darnell Mooney. I really do think it's good.
I hope so.
Kyle,
I have him on a few teams.
Kyle, what do you think? Because we're disagreeing here. What do you think?
I'm kind of with Denny. I like more targets. To me, more targets equals good, and less targets equals bad.
But what if he gets more targets because he's open more? You ever think of that?
It's possible. It's certainly possible. But your Claypool stats are like, he's actually not that good. Don't make me feel great about his ability to draw.
Well, like, he is being treated like Mapletron.
Yeah, the defense thinks he could be a problem if they don't account for him.
Did you call him Mapletron?
Wasn't that his old nickname? Remember?
No, I don't remember.
No.
You guys honestly don't remember that?
I remember.
It's from the Great North. That's Canada. If you don't know, it's another country.
I just think you're the first person to make it.
Just go to the North America Wikipedia, read up on the other countries in this continent, and you'll figure it out.
You talking about like Alaska?
Yeah, I am. Boy, I bet Canada wishes that was part of Canada, but we're America, so it's American. We'll just move on though. Denny, Khalil Herbert encroaching ever further on David Montgomery's turf. The touches are almost even. Khalil Herbert's been outproducing Montgomery in the ground 3 straight weeks. Montgomery, pretty sizable snap advantage soon. Just kind of what is the state of this backfield committee right now?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that I thought that I would be able to tell a story where it's like, oh, Herbert has really eaten into Montgomery's snaps. Not the case. Okay, last week against Dallas, Montgomery played 56 snaps to 22 snaps for Herbert. The thing is though, if Herbert's in, he's getting the ball. He had 16 carries on 22 snaps, whereas Montgomery had 14 carries on his 56 snaps. Now, Herbert is not at all part of the passing game. Montgomery last week against Dallas ran a route on 20 of 31 dropbacks for Chicago. Herbert ran just 3. But over the past 3 games, the efficiency difference really shows itself here. Over the past 3 games, Montgomery has played a lot more, has out-touched Herbert, but doesn't have that many more expected fantasy points. He has 33 expected fantasy points over that span, whereas Herbert has 27 expected fantasy points. So I think that Herbert has made it so that Montgomery doesn't have that like RB1 upside in any given week, and Herbert can be played. I think as a reasonable flex in deeper leagues. I will say that the Bears' predictable usage of Herbert, I feel like could come back to bite them and maybe him, but we'll see.
I do have both inside the top 24 this week, and I don't feel overly great about that. But I think it's kind of a 6 teams on bye type of thing, which you might hear us saying a lot in the show. But both the floors feel fairly safe right now, and we like the touch floor a little more for David Montgomery, but Khalil Herbert's floor is high enough where I feel like you can place a little bet on his ceiling. And it's kind of like, do you want to play Michael Carter over these guys, Tyler Algier, A.J. Dillon, maybe against the Lions? It's kind of a tough scene. So I do have both in the top 24 this week. Do with that information what you will.
That makes sense.
Kyle, in the other backfield, we don't have a committee with Raheem Mostert right now, but do we expect new addition Jeff Wilson, who, again, I thought his addition to the first was a joke to the Dolphins. I thought people were just joking on Twitter, and they actually did acquire Jeff Wilson. Will he remain mostly unchallenged, Raheem Mostert, or do we expect more of a committee to develop as the Dolphins maybe try to protect a player with a very extensive injury history in Raheem Mostert?
Yeah, I would say based on how poorly Chase Edmonds is playing, and I don't think Chase Edmonds is a bad running back, but I do think he was a poor fit for the scheme they were trying to run.
There's growing evidence that he's also a bad running back.
He might be, but he's looked good in the sort of limited sample we've seen previously in Arizona. He's looked like a decent runner. I'm just saying what we saw with the Dolphins was maybe the worst running back in the league by efficiency. I believe he was dead last in rushing yards over expected per attempt. And Jeff Wilson actually grades really well in that metric. And it's not like the Chase Edmonds scheme changing thing is going to affect him. He's going from the same scheme to the same scheme. So it was hard to do less than what Chase Edmonds was doing. And his usage showed that in this final four games with the Dolphins. He had one game over 5 carries. So they weren't using him, and now they're getting a running back who's proven to be efficient in this context. I don't think it will be that much of a committee, but I do think Jeff Wilson will eat into the workload more than Chase Edmonds was doing.
Before we move on from this game, does anyone have any new trends of the Dolphins passing attack, or is this just remaining Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, kind of an occasional Mike Gesicki pop-up game? Maybe is Mike Gesicki kind of getting like the Dawson Knox zone at this point where very low floor but could score touchdowns in high-scoring offense? Kerrane is shaking his head no.
No, his snaps were down and his routes were down last week. And you saw not just Durham Smythe getting some work, but Hunter Long mixing in as well. So he's down to a part-time player, kind of a touchdown dart throw, I think. As far as trends go, there was an interesting tweet from NFL Next Gen mentioning that that over the middle of the field completions for quarterbacks, that Tua Tagovailoa has 32 over the middle completions of 10 plus air yards. And that's twice as many as Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, who are tied for second. So it's kind of, it's been kind of interesting to think about like how this offense is schemed. You know, that they're able to get Tua throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill has 16 of these completions. Waddle has 15. So it's pretty exciting, like the way they're kind of able to get these guys open over the middle of the field. Double teams have not been working to take these guys away. They're both just like super efficient, almost no matter what the defense does.
Just ripping holes in the heart of the defense. Mike McDaniel might be a good coach. It's kind of what we're learning, I think.
That is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, Tyreek Hill said a couple weeks ago, he said this guy coaches like it's Madden. And I think we're onto something there, folks.
That's all we've ever wanted.
That's all I've ever wanted. This is it. This is the pinnacle. It only gets worse from here.
It really does all go downhill. And it is going downhill for all 31 other NFL teams who just no longer score touchdowns. It's really, really quite depressing. The Packers and Lions continue to disappoint in their own unique ways, Kyle. What do fantasy managers need to know about this 49.5 total affair, one where the Pack are 3.5-point road favorites?
Yeah, talk about teams that don't score touchdowns. Packers have entered the chat. I mean, this team is brutal, but I will side with Vegas and say that, like, in a matchup with, I think, almost easily the worst defense in the NFL, not qualming with them being the worst, but it's just the gap between them and the 31st team that's really the decision maker here. Allen Lazard looks like he'll be coming back. It's a really good spot for him. He ranks 13th in yards per route run against man. The Lions are top 5 in man cover rate. Though they've been trending a little more zone lately, I really don't care what they're doing. It's more about who they're trotting out, and Allen Lazard facing them is exciting. After that, Lions they're dead last in EPA per play, and the gap between them is nearly the same as between them and 31 is nearly the same as them 31 versus 24. I think so. They are truly bottom feeders. Last time Aaron Jones, who last week saw 24 touches, was in 2019. He has near 20 carries for the second time in the past 2.5 seasons. I think we're teetering on the edge of being done with the A.J. Dillon experiment. And last week was not a good week for them, but they still chose to fully ride out with Aaron Jones. So we're not done seeing A.J. Dillon, but I do think we are done with it being a 50-50 committee. I think we're going back to full-time Aaron Jones getting at least half, if not closer to 2/3 of the carries and plenty of targets. So you're starting him, you're starting Allen Lazard. I guess you're back starting Aaron Rodgers too. Vegas is telling you this game looks like it should actually be is it like the first good Packers game this year? It might be. So that's I wouldn't probably dig too deep other than that. Robert Tonyan, a perfectly fine streamer as well. Other side of the ball, I believe Dan Campbell came out and straight up said it. DeAndre Swift not fully healthy yet. He didn't practice to open the week. I think he returned to practice on Thursday. He led the team in snaps last week, which was kind of exciting, but he only turned that into 5 carries, 5 catches. Williams led the backfield with 13 touches. Packers have been terrible against the run, but I'm not sure how much DeAndre Swift running we see. They're going to split him between passing downs and rushing work. Jamal Williams has been the true running threat on this team as far as usage goes. So, I mean, I guess Jamal Williams, if he's going to get a dozen carries, maybe, they're not massive underdogs versus one of the league's worst run defenses. He's going to be ranked right behind. If you could convince me that you could rank him ahead of DeAndre Swift. And I love Swift, but the usage just hasn't been there for like over a month.
Yeah, sadly, I actually have Jamal Williams ahead of DeAndre Swift, just for basically every reason you laid out, and just expecting greater raw volume against the Packers run defense that is just still not good at all. And Kerrane, I'll get to you some, Kyle, too. You mentioned A.J. Dillon also. I agree with your take that he's probably being phased out finally, but maybe not the best week for that take to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Because of how bad this Lions run defense is.
Yeah, they could run 30 times, and even if he gets less than half, that's still 13 or 14 carries against a terrible pass defense, which masks the fact that they're also a terrible run defense.
Kerrane, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I guess I'd push back on the Swift stuff a little bit.
Please do, because I will go bankrupt.
They came out and said last week after the game, would have been nice to know this before the game, given that Swift is a pretty popular DFS play, that he wasn't fully healthy, and he had only 28% of the Lions carries, but he was playing a lot, 54% of the snaps. He had a 16% target share. So to me, yes, Jamal Williams is definitely in play. He could get in the end zone. He got in the end zone twice last week. This is a terrible Packers.
All it matters, sticky. Also, touchdowns very sticky.
They're very sticky, very predictable. But I think 29th in EPA allowed per rush. The Packers are, so you could see Swift ripping off some big plays here. And it's the same. It's the same bet as always with Swift. There's more risk that he will have a limited workload, but the fact that he led them in snaps, I think, is encouraging. I covered that game, and he looked fine to me. I don't know what they were talking about in terms of him not being healthy. He looked like he looked like DeAndre Swift. So I'm not I guess it's a risky bet, but I'd be still betting on Swift over Williams. On the Jones stuff, I think Jones is maybe set up for a week winning type of week. He is. I mean, the Lions are so bad. They're 30th in EPA allowed per rush, 32nd in EPA allowed per drop back. The Packers are doing the exact same thing in every game. They play slow. They try to go for this efficient offense. They run first offense this year. It hasn't really worked, but I think it could work this week against the Lions. I think it could look like kind of a vintage Packers performance. And Aaron Jones had a 30% target share 2 weeks ago, 18% last week. That's 25% over his last 2 weeks. That would lead the NFL, lead among running backs over the course of the full season. A very strong sign they're trying to get him the ball. He's been really good second in success rate as a rusher this season. So it's not just like a receiving back. He's been running really, really well. If the A.J. Dillon experiment is a little over, at least in terms of them being a true split, and they ride Aaron Jones here, I think he could absolutely crush.
Really, really, really. As someone who had almost universal redraft exposure to DeAndre Swift, listen, I'm having a fourth child in February. I'm assuming that fourth kid would like a home. And
so DeAndre, if you're listeing,
please start producing.
Get healthy soon, brother.
Really, really quick. Any Aaron Rodgers DFS sickoing going on this week?
I won't be sickoing. He'll be popular.
Okay, hell yeah. All right, good.
Wait, Kyle, do you think he'll be popular?
Yeah. People, I mean, the Lions is the smash spot of all smash spots.
There you go. Aaron
Gross.
Rodgers is back. The road
Play
to
through the
MVP
running game.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I mean,
road to MVP 3 starts here.
I don't think I don't think Rodgers has a game with more than like 255 passing yards this year.
He's bad.
Man. That's
Led
what
by
I'm sorry. I'm gonna just walk over you. I'm gonna say that's what the kids are calling bad chalk. That's all I'm saying.
no, a lot of some bad chalk was given to my kids in Halloween, and it almost made them sick. So thankfully they're okay. Led by weeks 7 to 8, MVP candidate PJ Walker. The Panthers arrive in Cincinnati as touchdown plus underdogs. Denny, what do the folks need to know about this potentially reviving Panthers team and the Jamar Chaseless Bengals?
Yes. Here's what you need to know about the Jamar Chaseless Bengals is that they stink.
Well, I mean, it was one game.
They stink. They still can't. I mean, the main thing is they cannot protect Joe Burrow enough for him to deliver the sort of downfield stuff that we want and / need for T. Higgins, especially last week. Let me break down the target share without Jamar Chase in the lineup against the Browns. Naturally, we had Joe Mixon leading the team with a 26% target share. We had T. Higgins at 18%, Boyd at 15%, and Hayden Hurst at 12%, just as we all predicted. So I do think we're going to see, mostly intermediate type stuff, and teams are still playing 2 high safeties against the Bengals at a really high clip, one of the highest in the league, with or without Chase, I guess, because they obviously still have Higgins, who's a downfield threat as well. You can confidently play Boyd and Higgins. I would say the increase in passing work for Joe Mixon, even though he has been brutally inefficient throughout this season and really last season as well, and really the rest of all of his seasons, it's a good buffer. I think that sort of involvement is a good PPR buffer, especially for him not being able to get there on the ground outside of a touchdown heavy day. So it's good for him, not good for the team. That's kind of how I see this. And on the other side of the ball, you have DJ Moore just dominating both air yards and targets over the past 2 weeks.
Brings a tear to your eye.
Yeah, I mean, really,
DJ Moore wants my future child to still be living in a home.
I'm really worried about you and your family. I just had to be honest. Yeah, and so I think that, like I said on this show last week, that you could start DJ Moore as a wide receiver too, and not everybody agree with me. I don't know what's going on the show.
I don't know. Kyle this week we were talking about DJ Moore on Tuesday, and he thought I was going to ask if he could be a wide receiver 1. Kyle's like, yeah, no doubt. He's I do have him like the wide receiver 16. You didn't say wide receiver 1, but you said no doubt wide receiver 2. Even though it's only been 2 weeks, I totally agree with that. He's back in the top 18.
Yeah, when you were cautiously saying, can I treat him as, and it might be a little point chasey, like the point chasiness would be calling him a top 10 option. You're safe to call him a wide receiver 22 or a wide receiver 17. Exactly.
Sure.
Let me just say, I'm not surprised to see Mr. Fantasy Denny over here talking about DJ Moore as if he had a good game. He lost him the game, Denny. He took off his helmet. Come on.
I will say,
That's good.
really not quite sure why he did that. That was
I've
pretty
seen
costly.
Doesn't the rule say you have to be on the field though? And he took it off when he was off the field.
No, I think it's anywhere not on your sideline.
But they never call that anymore.
They kind of do. It's a very, very famous rule.
No, of course it is, but they don't call it unless it'll cost somebody the game, and then they're like, oh, gotta call this.
Well, of course you just expect the moronic kicker to just make the extra point.
It's a 48-yard extra point.
You ever
man.
thought about
Give
that?
a guy
Just
a
make the
break.
extra point.
That's seriously how long that extra point.
Well, at least
was
he made
with
that
penalty?
field goal later.
I'm not gonna hold water for every scrub kicker off the street. Okay, sorry, Panthers kicker.
Sir, I have standards.
Yeah, Denny, I hope you're no longer the leader of the lobby, so I hope you're happy.
I mean, I based my entire fantasy career on bumping up Rodrigo Blankenship before he was cut. So I don't.
I will say, I think I will side with the real football lobby, and that maybe he should have just kept his helmet on.
No, come on. I was doing a bit. That's ridiculous. That was an incredible catch. The whole thing was silly.
But it was incredible. Why do you have to take off your helmet?
Because it was that incredible. They need to see your face. Why is that a penalty anyway?
I don't think it was a penalty.
I actually
shouldn't be a
don't know why
penalty.
it's a penalty. That is the greater
play is
question.
Well, no,
over.
like I
Take-
think
everyone should
by
have
the
their
letter of the
helmets off.
law, it's not a penalty. Like the action has to happen on the play of the field.
No,
This
it
is
just-
what surprisingly Panthers Wire is telling me it's not a penalty.
There you go. PanthersWire.us.
I think it's part of 'cause
Back
these
up.
players. They would have more power if we knew what they look like. I think it's all big.
No, I didn't. No, that's it. That's
probably
it.
is part of
The NFL does not want the audience to know what these guys' faces look like. They don't.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. Take your helmets off all you want.
That's
The
right. Brett Favre used to do it all the time. Every time he threw a touchdown, he'd rip his helmet off, run around with the helmet in his hand.
Every time he got pick six too.
Yeah, that's it.
Brett Favre also was famously fined for making the throat slash gesture.
Oh yeah.
yeah, Brett
Zoomers won't remember that there was a throat slashing controversy in the NFL.
His only controversy, Brett Favre.
Yeah.
I did want to make sense, or I did want to just before we move off of this game, Joe Mixon. To your point, Denny, on the target stuff, he saw a first read target on 20% of his routes in the Browns game, which crushed his season high of 13%. Now just one of 7 running backs all season to have a game where he saw 5+ first read targets. So this was like very much a plan based on the pressure that they knew Burrow was going to be under. You're going to see the Panthers actually get pressure. So I think probably you would imagine the Bengals kind of treating this matchup somewhat similarly.
Yeah.
I don't like it. But Joe Mixon, I think, is going to get a lot of work this week.
The most disappointing team in football, the Los Angeles Chargers, arrive in Atlanta as somewhat surprising 3-point favorites. My editorializing, not anyone else on the staff. The Chargers will be missing Mike Williams and probably likely Keenan Allen. Denny, we'll get to the Falcons in a minute, but is there reason to expect things to be better for the Bolts coming off their bye? Justin Herbert has only 6 touchdowns in 5 games since injuring his ribs in week 2 against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I didn't like you tweeted that the other day, and I did not like that. I did not approve.
Well, I tell you who did not like that. I've always said there are not Chargers fans. I finally found them.
All 12 of them went after
They
you.
did actually go nuts and like, why don't you mention his ribs? I'm like,
So why don't you live in Los Angeles?
Yeah, and I was like, good point. I'm like, I'm pretty sure most people know that. Like, I can't make every tweet the guy's like Wikipedia entry. Yeah, he's got ribs. They're hurt. So why is he even playing if he's not healthy enough to throw touchdowns?
That's a good question.
But anyways, Denny, what do we need to know about? Can the Chargers stop making people openly weep?
Well, look, as someone who was tweeting about how bad the analytics say the Chargers are on offense, it's hard for me to be bullish here. But if they're ever going to do it, it's this week. It counts, folks. Against a truly terrible Falcons defense. Pro Football Focus grades Atlanta's defense as the league's sixth worst coverage unit. I still didn't say it right. The single worst pass rush, and rated 17th in run defense. But it's not that the Falcons are necessarily like middling or okay at defending the run. They're not. They allow the 7th highest EPA per rush. It's the 3rd highest EPA per rush over the past 3 weeks. And the thing the teams do is they shift to the pass. They like the Falcons have been a pass funnel for a lot of the season. The way that the Chargers have been passing it, not good, but lots lately. I think that we're going to see that again here. I think it puts, maybe if Herbert can accidentally throw a touchdown or 2, that would be cool. But I think it puts volume wise, I think it makes Josh Palmer really interesting because, Keenan Allen is struggling again through a hamstring.
Sounds like he's out, just to be honest.
Yeah, he's probably out.
He's somehow, it was the classic. He proved the point wrong that you always get healthier during your bye week, where somehow his hamstring injury got worse.
But the last time I thought he was out for sure, he played. So I don't know. Mike Williams is out for, is he on IR? I mean, he's out for a little while.
He's out. I think he's on IR. Yeah. Whatever.
So I mean, Josh Palmer comes in, and I mean, he feels like a lock for like 10 or 12 targets in this kind of game environment. It makes me very interested in him as like a wide receiver 2-3 option.
People handing out on Halloween some of this Josh Palmer chalk to my kids.
Yeah,
chalk this week.
Definitely chalking.
Are we allowed to play him, or are we is that too normie to play Josh Palmer in DFS this weekend?
Oh,
Kyle, what's he priced at? What's the salary on DraftKings?
4K, I think. I don't know. DFS article doesn't come out till tomorrow. You're asking too much. It doesn't come out till about 1 o'clock tomorrow and doesn't get written till about 12:45. So,
Wow.
Also, over the past 3 weeks, Austin Eckler has the second highest target share in the league among running backs. So lots of targets are going to him no matter what. Here.
Does anyone have a data point? I'm sorry, you go, Kerrane.
Normally I have selected a cover boy for the walkthrough by this point, and I have not yet. But Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones, I think are my finalists right now. I think Austin Eckler could feast here.
Is there anything going on behind Austin Eckler, by the way, or can we just continue to ignore the Sony Michel, et cetera, merry-go-round? And if you have nothing to say on this, that is a valid answer, all three of you.
I mean, is it Sony Michel?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. No, we don't know. That's the point.
Eckler doesn't seem to he hasn't scored inside the 5 yet, I don't think. So,
but from the 6, I think.
Okay, yeah. So maybe if there's carries at the 1, but I think he's scoring from the 25 in this game.
It is funny that Eckler gets punished. Eckler gets punished in expected fantasy points because he turns a carry from the 27 to a touchdown. Right. And you're like, well, unfortunately, he's just not that good because he doesn't have a lot of expected points. That's because he cashes in. His red zone starts about 50-yard line.
Right. So. Well, we didn't expect that, Austin.
Yeah, good point.
Doesn't count unless we expected it.
Yeah.
Kerrane, Denny said this time it counts, maybe, with the Chargers. This time it count with Kyle Pitts? Or there's too much establishment for the Falcons ground game against a hellaciously bad Chargers run defense?
I see a stat of the week hand up, I assume.
Doesn't count. No, I don't have a stat of the week, but this time it does not count. Kyle Pitts, over the last 2 weeks, here's some reasons to be excited. If we're going to get excited, this is why. Target on 26% of his routes over the last 2 weeks. Drake London at just 13%. It is possible that the Falcons have decided, you know what, Pitt's a little more dangerous. We're going to have him as our number one option moving forward. It's also possible they were just attacking specific matchups. We could see that go back to Drake London. Drake London had previously been dominating in terms of his target rate. So, it's just all very fragile with the Falcons because even though we saw more passing attempts last week, that's because we just saw more plays. They went to overtime. They had a minus 14% pass rate over expected against the Panthers. They tied actually with the Panthers for the 4th lowest pass rate over expected of the week. Minus 14% is very, very run heavy. So this is not they didn't discover some new way of playing football last week. They were still the same old Falcons. The way I've been describing the Chargers is that they are not a run funnel, but they're about to be because they can't stop the run. The Falcons are going to go super run heavy against them. I think if you're worried, the Falcons are going to go so run heavy, I'm not just worried about their passing game. I'm worried about the Chargers passing game. They're going to try to slow this game down, control the game. And I think they're going to be somewhat successful in doing that because the Chargers can't stop anyone on the ground. So I think the more interesting guy here maybe is Cordarrelle Patterson. If we get him back this game, I still would be starting Pitts just because, that trend in terms of the target rate is nice. Is, tight end eligibility. But I'm willing to kind of risk a very low score if I'm putting him in my lineup.
Kyle's about to talk about Cordarrelle Patterson and if he returns for the Falcons, but Kerrane, you just kind of hit on a point. I'm frankly surprised the Chargers are favored in this game. Why are the Chargers favored in this game?
I don't know, man.
What is the reason? What is the Vegas reasoning? I mean, because they're always smarter than me, but why on earth are the Chargers favored in this game?
The Chargers, they can put the game in a place where the Falcons can't reach it, right? They can get ahead. The Falcons can't. The Falcons can only score a touchdown per 8 minutes, right? You know what I mean? They don't have another gear. So
there's a very easy lose condition for the Falcons, which is go down 2 scores.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
That makes sense. That actually does make sense. But yeah, I kind of agree with Denny. I just don't know if the Chargers can actually put a game out of reach now.
Also, this is at 1 o'clock Eastern time, and they're playing in Atlanta. These guys are going to be half asleep. This is analytics, folks. They're West Coast teams can't play on the East Coast. Get out of here.
They cannot. They just cannot.
That's a football guy talking point. We're taking that one.
The Seattle Seahawks did win a Super Bowl in New York City, by the way.
Well, no, but that game started at 7 o'clock at night.
There goes your facts and logic. Yeah, it did, but still.
No, 1 o'clock is 10 a.m. on the West Coast. Those guys haven't even gotten up and eaten their fish tacos and surfed or whatever they're doing.
They haven't surfed yet.
That's a really Denny is right. You can't argue with that one.
Yeah, body clock, man. That's just
it does come to fruition shockingly often. By the way.
Oh, look at the Niners. The Niners, Jimmy Garoppolo had sleepy eyes when they started that game. Like, it was like, when you wake up and you're like swollen,
You can always tell how Garoppolo's going to play based on how handsome he looks that day.
I mean, he's always incredibly handsome. Don't get me wrong. He was just a little less handsome when he played the Falcons.
Analytics. Kyle, Cordero Patterson has resumed practicing. We're not getting daily updates because he's still technically on injured reserve. Kind of seems like he's going to return. If he does return, what do we expect from this Falcons backfield, which have been a two-man committee with Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley while Patterson was out?
Yeah, I imagine it will still be a committee, not nearly as much as it has been because Patterson is clearly their best rusher. I mean, to Arthur Smith's credit, he does a lot of things that are unsufferably infuriating, but he has designed a really good run game. Like all three of the running backs, Patterson, Huntley, and Algier, are all positive in rush yards over expected. Patterson leads the way in his top 15 in that metric. The only problem is that you are relying on him getting there exclusively on the ground. So because he doesn't do the fun Cordell Patterson thing where he gets to play some wide receiver, he gets to play a little bit of inline. He's just playing running back. Less than 20% of his snaps have come out wide or in the slot. But he's been a really efficient runner. So you're more okay with that than we were last year, where he was really just getting rammed into like stuffed boxes, bottled up. At least the run game now has been incredibly efficient for everyone, him the most of them. So if he is back, we don't know. Like you said, he's technically not off IR, he's designated. But if he is back, he should lead the backfield in carries. I mean, he's a career mostly wide receiver who has been banged up in the 2 seasons he's played running back. So I can't imagine you want to give him 20 plus carries a game, but he's been so efficient that you're more than happy with 12, 15.
Cordero, it would be really nice for Cordero to come back. He was, again, one of the early season's best storylines. Getting absolutely no love, reigning AFC number 1 seed Tennessee arrives in Kansas City as nearly 2 touchdown underdogs. Kerrane, tell the folks what they need to know about this game.
Well, I mean, we don't really know right now what the deal is going to be at quarterback. Ryan Tannehill got a limited practice Wednesday. I don't believe he practiced today, or at least he wasn't at the media portion. So that's a problem because Malik Willis wasn't good last week.
Or it wasn't allowed to be good. I would say he was both not good and not allowed to be good.
Yes. I had that game, and both is correct.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of EPA per play, 3rd worst of any quarterback in a game all season. He was behind only PJ Walker against the Rams and Matt Ryan in the shutout loss to the Jaguars in week 2. So I think you really do want Ryan Tannehill. If you're for some reason playing Bobby Trees, you definitely want Tannehill. I think, though, you want Tannehill even if you're just sort of interested in this game being fun. To your point about them not letting Malik Willis succeed, they had a minus 36% pass rate over expected. That, in my numbers, you have to go all the way back to when the Patriots went super, super run heavy in that win game against the Bills. I believe they tied them in pass rate over expected in that game.
3 pass attempts that game.
Yeah.
You said they tied them?
I think they tied them in that game. Yeah.
That's insane. Because I mean, that game you had every right to say, we're not going to throw the football. Like, it didn't look like people would be physically capable of doing such an act. This was a perfectly normal game for Malik Willis. Like, that's insane.
Just a perfectly normal game. Actually, no, that was minus 57%.
Okay.
So it didn't tie them.
Still uncomfortably close, though. You shouldn't be within 20%.
And Kevin Cole mentioned that the only other game that he had being like even in this realm of run heaviness was the Kendall Hinton at quarterback game for the Broncos.
These are not good comps.
I believe that was a 31-0 loss, maybe.
Yeah. So this was like not football, basically. Like that's like how they were operating with Willis. So if Tannehill doesn't go,
you said that Derrick Henry had 46 more rushing yards than any other player in a game this season.
Yeah, it sounds like football to me. I don't know what you're watching, bud.
A certain kind of football, Pat.
Certain kind of football, and he's going to go for 200 yards against the Texans, no matter what. We now know that. No matter, literally, me or Kyle could be out there. Derrick Henry would go for 200. So yeah, you don't have to worry about Henry. He's running back 7 in breakaway yards per game. He's running back 3 in yards per route run, which is kind of wild, given that it's Derrick Henry. He has the 5th most valuable workload in expected points this season. So, yeah, you don't need to worry about Henry as far as Willis goes, I don't think. Although I still think he'd be better off if Tannehill was out there. But I think if Willis is out there, it's just going to make the whole game worse. We already have a lot of questions about the Chiefs. Now, Kelsey's locked in. Mahomes is second in EPA per play. He's locked in. But we have Kadarius Toney in the mix now. I would expect that he'll be in a limited role, but in a way that's probably going to make things harder for the other wide receivers to get there. The guy I feel best about is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's been very efficient. He has 2.09 yards per route run, but that's driven by an 11.2 yards per target. That's over 3 yards higher than you'd expect for his shallow 7.5 ADOT. He has an unimpressive 19% target rate, 18% target share, 18% air yard share. So the volume for Juju has not been good. This is the guy I feel best about, by the way. But when you at this point, like now that Tony's in the mix, we're worried about who's even playing. And one thing Juju has going for him is that he's actually been more efficient on the outside than in the slot, and he has been moved around. So, like, I feel like he's somewhat insulated in that if Tony's in the slot, Juju's still probably on the field, but, you know, he's on the outside, and he's been pretty good there. So, and if Tony plays on the outside, Juju can obviously play out of the slot. So I think Juju's going to kind of do his normal thing. I think he's definitely going to face some negative regression coming up, but I'm not worried about him, like, not seeing as many snaps. I am worried about Mecole Hardman. But Mecole Hardman's had a high double team rate. I wonder if that helps, you know, keep him on the field if he's actually drawing coverage. He's not drawing targets, but if he's drawing coverage, maybe he stays out there a little more than we might think, and that could hurt MVS, you know? So I just don't really want to touch any of these wide receivers outside of Juju and the flex. Backfield's also a total mess. I think it's possible we see more Pacheco coming out of the bye, but McKinnon's clearly their best back, so he's not going away. And I would be surprised if Clyde Edwards-Helaire was like fully benched. So 3-way split in the backfield. I think you're kind of hoping for enough receptions from McKinnon to make him playable. You're not getting that most likely if we get Willis on the other side. So it's really just like a touchdown or bust bet on Pacheco. It's kind of like a weirdly kind of awful offense for fantasy given how good Mahomes is playing.
Pacheco closeout mode. It's all a red-blooded American can hope for this weekend. Kyle, the Ravens turn their offense over. Excuse me, Kyle. As the Ravens turn their offense over to the running game, the Saints are all in on Andy Dalton. What should fantasy managers be looking forward to in this game, up to and including a potential Kenyon Drake start? And while we're recording this podcast, it has been revealed Rashad Bateman done for the year with his foot injury, and Michael Thomas, who has not played a game since the second Reagan administration, headed back to injured reserve. So there has been some injury news.
You're getting political. That's interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah, on the Saints, it's pretty easy to narrow down who you care about. Chris Olave, a 26% target share and a 40% air yard share under Dalton. That was the same almost exactly as it was with Jameis Winston. He's just quarterback proof because he's a really strong number one receiver. So you're perfectly fine starting him as like a strong wide receiver too against a defense that has struggled to stop opposing passing attacks. Kamara, 26% target share under Andy Dalton. Also better than it was with Jameis Winston. It was still good with Winston, but hilariously, Jameis wasn't even accurate targeting Alvin Kamara on the short stuff. At least Dalton can get him that. And then Taysom Hill. We've seen a little bit of a pulse from Taysom Hill. He's been elite in terms of efficiency all year, but now the volume upticking too. In the past 4 games, he's averaging 7 carries, 1 target, nearly 1 target. I think it's 0.8 and 2 pass attempts. And he wasn't doing much of the passing or the catching passes. He was just running the ball. So if he's going to do a little bit of it all, tight end is just a nightmare. So I guess you can certainly play him as your starting tight end. On the other side, without now Rashad Bateman, I'm a little concerned what it does to the offense. Bateman was kind of lapping the rest of the team, especially the receivers in terms of yards per route run. He wasn't doing a ton for fantasy, but he really did perfectly clear out deep. And on a per route basis, he was actually really efficient. So you're not benching anyone because of, you're not benching Mark Andrews because he's going to have too much coverage, or Lamar, but you're a little bit concerned about the efficiency.
And that's if Mark Andrews plays. Back-to-back not back-to-back, excuse me, that's on Monday. He started off the week with a DNP on Thursday.
Got it.
And I just think I would be very worried about Mark Andrews playing in this game because the Ravens are going on bye in week 10, and the Ravens have been very bad at managing their players' health this year. But it would stand to reason they will hold Mark Andrews out this week and they'll let him heal through the week 10 bye. But I also have no faith that they will actually do that.
Yeah, on the off chance Isaiah Likely's on your waiver wire, pick him up instantly.
He should be 100% rostered for sure in 12-team leagues. Continuing to surprise, the Seattle Seahawks head on the road against the Cardinals team, continuing to disappoint. Be that as it may, Kyle, The Cardinals are catching 2 points at home. There's interesting stuff going on with Arizona's receiver core, but we'll start with Seattle's. What can fantasy managers make of a situation where neither DK Metcalf nor Tyler Lockett seem particularly close to 100% health, but both are playing?
Yeah, I mean, as a spreadsheet surfer, I would say they saw last week, 90% of the team's air yards, 54% of the targets, both top 17 PPR points with a touchdown to both Ledger. So I'm sure they are not 100% healthy. I was shocked DK Metcalf played last week. Like, the first reports were like, thank God it wasn't season ending. And then he just played anyways, and he scored. So, I mean, the offense, per usual, at least the passing attack, ran exclusively through those two. And that tells me what I need to know, at least about playing them for fantasy purposes.
And then, so Denny, the Cardinals pass catchers, DeAndre Hopkins, just going totally nuclear since coming back 2 weeks ago. He had 10 catches both games. I know he's had over 10 targets both
Correct,
games.
10 catches both games, I think for the first time since 2015.
What can we trust Zach Ertz still? He has a tight end absolute smash spot in this game. The Seahawks are allowing the most tight end fantasy points. You know, the total's near 50. But do you feel confident with any? I mean, I know Rondale Moore had a big game too in Week 8, but do we feel confident with any non-DeAndre Hopkins pass catchers with the Cardinals?
I mean, not really. I've seen the Zach Ertz is ranked really highly this week, and I get that because there are 6 teams on bye. If folks didn't know, you're discovering it now, just for the first time on a Thursday. Look, I understand that there's like not many people that you can rank above Zach Ertz, but it's not great for him since DeAndre Hopkins returned to the lineup. Ertz has a 12% target share over those 2 games. Seattle is like an okay tight end matchup. They give up the 9th most tight end receptions, 7.5 tight end targets per game.
They do allow the most tight end fantasy points, Denny.
Yeah, I did see that. I try not to get too bogged down in that because it's a lot of that's like touchdown dependence, whatever. But
there's
that's
also like 3 good tight ends in the entire league. So
yeah, if you happen to run into Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews on your schedule, you will be the worst team against tight ends.
It's a fair point.
Yeah, and I do think you're playing Zach Ertz. You're not gonna like pluck someone off the waiver wire and play over him, but like that 12% target share is pretty bleak, I think.
Any Rondale Moore love? Who Rondale's seems like he's becoming the classic. When we're on him, he does nothing. When we're not on him, he catches 8 passes.
I mean, I faded him last week because he had played 80% on the outside the week before, and he shifted back to the slot, and he did quite well as you would imagine against the Vikings. So if we can get some rational coaching going on, some predictable rational coaching, which is a lot to ask for from Cliff Kingsbury, I get it. But if we get 80% slot share every week for more, we're in business PPR wise.
So I was like a little bit less optimistic on Rondale Moore because he played 52% of his snaps in the slot last week, which is a lot more than the week before, but like well below the 80-something% he had 2 weeks ago. And then I was digging in the numbers. He has on non-screen routes, he has a 12% target rate when lined up outside. When he goes in the slot, he has a 12% target rate. So he's been like kind of the same. The thing is like how many screens he's getting. He's seen 31% of his targets on screens. So I think it's really up to Cliff how good of a game he has, because we just need him to call screenplays for Rondale Moore. Otherwise, he's having trouble earning targets no matter where he is. Having something up to Cliff always makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. And Denny, it sounds like you went with the process last week, and as usual, the process just did not go with you.
But you can shout from the rooftop the process, and it makes everything okay.
It does, especially with the Los Angeles Chargers. Kerrane, will stick with you for a minute. Cardinals backfield. James Conner's practicing again. James Conner practices a lot though, and then he doesn't play because he apparently just like blew up his ribs like 4 weeks ago. We don't quite know what's going on in the Cardinals backfield, but give us the lay of the land in the Cardinals backfield.
Yeah, I thought he was playing last week because he was practicing last week. So, I guess if you have Benjamin, maybe you'll get another spot start out of him. It was interesting last week because we had Darrell Williams playing 27% of the snaps and healthy, but Benjamin still had a really strong snap share, over 75% of the snaps. So, I think they clearly like, Benjamin. I think the advantage that Conner has, and why I do think he'll have a significant role when he eventually returns, is pass blocking. He ranks running back 7 in pass blocking grade per PFF this year. Benjamin is running back 29. And the thing about Benjamin, I've been comparing him as kind of like an Alexander Madison type. Like he's He's a chunk play runner. He's decent as a receiver. He's not amazing, but he's a versatile back, kind of do everything. If he's got the whole backfield to himself, he'll be productive. But I do worry about that pass blocking, because if Benjamin is just sort of like a relief runner, he's not like particularly explosive. He's, again, kind of more just a chunk play guy. So I'm worried that Connor might come back and take most of the high value stuff. It makes me definitely like, if I have a better option at RB2 instead of, Benjamin with Connor in, I think I'd go with that.
Do you consider James Conner an RB2 if he's active?
I would, yeah. I think he's definitely like a boom bust type, because maybe
There's
this
a
whole
boom?
practice thing. The boom would be he scores a touchdown and he catches like 4 passes. Yeah, which I think is possible.
It is possible.
But you
should be noted, Darrell Williams on IR. So if we don't get
hip injury.
Yeah, if we don't get James Conner, we saw a really strong split of Benjamin versus Keontae Ingram, which we didn't see as much when Darrell Williams was back for the one game.
Anything going on behind Ken Walker, by the way? Travis Homer seems to have swapped in for DJ Dallas as like the satellite number 2 back. No concern for our guy Ken Walker.
Season high snap share last week for Ken Walker.
Say no more. Denny Carter's New York Jets welcome the Buffalo Bills to New Jersey as 11.5-point road favorites. Denny, give us the lay of the land with your gangrene here. What's going on?
Love my Jets, first and foremost. This has blowout script written all over it. I'm not sure how the Jets can avoid that. So it should be good, volume wise. We should get that inflated route running and inflated target share or just raw targets really for Garrett Wilson, who benefited from that sort of script last week against New England when Zach Wilson had to drop back 41 times against the Patriots. Obviously, that is Robert Saleh and the Jets' worst nightmare, the worst case scenario for any game. I see the same thing sort of unfolding here against Buffalo. Zach Wilson is completely unusable. I think even in Superflex here, I think that, so they bumped Mike White up to QB2 the other day over Flacco. I think we're going to see some Mike White in this game.
Let's go,
man. This is taking haterade to a new level here, Denny.
Oh, no. Zach Wilson. They look, if they're serious about making the playoffs, they cannot keep playing Zach Wilson. So I think that they're going to come to that realization.
Mike White is definitely better than Zach Wilson.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and Flacco obviously is too, but they're done with him.
Josh Johnson's better than Zach.
Josh Johnson would take this team to the playoffs.
Guys, this is some children probably listen to this show. There might be at least 1 to 2 children who listen to this show.
There's
he can't throw the ball out of bounds. Every time he tries to throw it away, it's intercepted.
It is a problem. It is a large problem.
So the Jets are actually pretty good against the run. Since week 4, they give up the 4th lowest EPA per rush. I think that the Bills will be happy to embrace a full-on aerial onslaught against these Jets. And that's good, so you're playing everybody in the passing game. I think Dawson Knox probably gets a boost. Maybe even Isaiah McKenzie, who's been awful this year, I know, but I think you can play him here in 12-team leagues, 6 teams on a bye. I don't know if you guys heard. The backfield for the Bills, a little bit up in the air, obviously, because Nyheim Hines was traded to Buffalo this week.
Denny, speaking of this time it counts, Nyheim Hines is going to be the pass catching back finally for the Buffalo Bills.
So this fulfills the Bills' long time desire for a pass catching back.
Some may say obsession.
So they tried to sign J.D. McKissick, and McKissick said no thanks.
He'd rather play for Daniel Snyder.
They drafted James Cook. They said no thanks, and now they and I mean the James Cook thing is over already.
He looks good.
It is weird. He looks good.
He does look good. That's the thing.
Looks so good.
Yeah, I mean I've never watched him, but I hear he looks good. And then so Hines comes in, and I think,
do you have an analytic of what other people think when they've watched him that you study?
Well, listen, when I see the James Cook dot on the screen start to move back and forth, I'm like, oh, that's fast. That's a fast dot.
That's a fast dot.
It's a hell of a dot.
So I think Hines could, if Hines comes in and becomes the pass catching back, I don't think that that's a great role in an offense that doesn't really throw it to running backs. 17% target share combined, all of the running backs for the Bills so far this season. That makes Devin Singletary like unusable for fantasy. So rest in peace, Devin Singletary drafters.
Except for this week, I think Devin Singletary actually will. I think even the Bills are going to be running in the fourth quarter of this game, right?
What are you talking about? Nyheim Hines, he's been there like 4 days. If he doesn't get 20 touches, they hate it.
We're back to that.
Come on, man.
He's a running back. Hey, you give him the ball.
Running back, just put him out there. What is he? He's going to run. He needs to learn how to run.
Exactly. I mean, it really is true. I mean, just throw him the ball. He's going to know how to catch it. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Been doing it since he was 5 years old, probably. By the way, speaking of the Bills not checking down, instead of checking down to running backs, Josh Allen would just rather expose his throwing shoulder to a massive hit every single time he should be checking down to a running back. Can't help but feel our boy is playing with fire. Josh, please protect your shoulder. And yeah, the Bills, again, like he's had twice as long as Christian McCaffrey, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Twice as
many
many
touches. Excuse. No excuse for at least 25 touches for Nyheim Hines this week in his Bills debut. The Rams and Bucks meet up in Tampa Bay as two teams going in the wrong direction. The Bucks are 3-point home favorites, Denny Carter. I am almost literally begging you to tell me that Tom Brady is headed for positive touchdown regression this weekend.
I'm starting to get worried about your family as well.
It's a long story, but need some Tom Brady tutties.
I mean, I'm deeply worried here. Yeah, I mean, you would think so. I mean, the Bucks, even though they started the season really run heavy, especially for their standards, they're now 4th in pass rate over expected. And in recent games, they have been 21, 23, and 12% over expected with their pass rate. So lots of passing going on. You would think that eventually the touchdowns would come. I don't know how you can measure, though, Tom Brady's complete alienation from his teammates. I'm not sure how we factor that into the analytics here. I mean, you either see Tom Brady screaming at his team on the sideline or sitting by himself saying nothing to anyone. So I think that's probably a deeper problem than we can get into.
Pat, take notes. That may be you and your family soon.
Tom Brady doesn't have a 3 touchdown game. It's gonna be. I need to have one player to be concerned about for each kid. By the way, so I had DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Tom Brady. I need to think of a 4th here soon.
Yeah, I'm sure you can think of someone.
4th potential player to bankrupt all I hold near and love.
And also the Bucks, especially recently over the past month, have like a good number of red zone possessions per game. Like they're driving into scoring position. It's just not happening. So perhaps variance finally kicks in here, and we get some, as the kids are saying, tutties.
As we get some tutters, some tutties, whatever you want to call them, whatever horrible name you want to refer to scoring 6 points as now, we want them. Kyle, can we care about Julio Jones, who he frankly, I thought by the eye test looked like he could spike a week when he came back last week. Like looked like he had some life in those legs, but he also checked out of the game several times. We can never count on him to really stay healthy. Is there anything here going forward down the stretch in fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, it was his first game back, I believe, and he only ran a route on 56% of the team's dropbacks. We expect that to rise, but given his, Julio has never not looked good. It's that half the times you're looking for him, he is not present, and that's the issue. Because when he started the year, he was pretty strong in yards per route run. They were scheming up carries. I think if we ever get a healthy Julio, you probably want to be playing that player. This Bucs team, even if I don't have kids, which is a good thing because they'd also be praying for touchdowns from Tom Brady. Maybe that never comes, right? But they are at least passing, as Denny said, at one of the highest rates over expected in the league, especially since they got Evans and Godwin back. So I definitely want to have him stashed. But coming off a game where he ran a route on just over half the dropbacks, that's not really enough. He needs to separate himself from Scotty Miller or whoever they're going to use behind him before I want to play a true part-time player. But I'd like to be holding him for the maybe day that we get 80% routes or something of that nature.
Kyle, if you ever decide to have children, whenever it is, I can guarantee Tom Brady will still be playing, and you might be in the position to be praying for touchdowns from him. So you too can go through what I'm going through. Kerrane, I asked you to explain the strange goings on in the Rams pass catcher core. You asked me what that meant, and I didn't.
I slacked you. So,
I said Allen Robinson kind of coming on, Tyler Higbee really falling off. Van Jefferson making his debut in week 8 and then not getting targeted. What, if anything, is going on behind Cooper Kupp, banged up with an ankle injury after he was running routes down 31-14 with a minute left in the game?
Yeah, you mentioned Van Jefferson not targeted. He had a route on 64% of dropbacks, so he was out there a lot. I think, one, not a great sign for Van Jefferson. Two, interesting that it didn't have an impact on Robinson, not just in terms of the targets, but Robinson was out there running a route on 89% of dropbacks. That was actually up from route rates over the last couple of weeks of 86% and 85%. So Jefferson not impacting Robinson's playing time at all. That's nice. However, Robinson had a 13% target rate, gross 0.84 yards per route run. Terrible. So, yeah, he's going to be out there for all the routes, but, I mean, he's still not doing anything. Now, you look at Tyler Higbee. You mentioned him falling off. He was out with a neck injury that cost him some snaps, but I believe
it was a stinger.
Okay. So he was targeted he was targeted 6 times. He produced just 15 yards. So that's obviously terrible. But those 6 targets came with him running a route rate of just 42%. So he was targeted on 40% of his routes. I think there's really no question about this. He is the number 2 option in this passing game. He is very firmly ahead of Allen Robinson in the target pecking order. He is a better receiver play than Robinson. Throw out the tight end eligibility part. Like, he's just a better play. Now you get to put him in your tight end slot. You know, he's a decent play. I don't really see how you're starting Robinson. I mean, I have heard that there are, I believe, is it 6 teams on bye this week? So you're going to have,
it's known as SACE actually.
Yes, SACE. You're going to have some options or lack of options of who to put in, but I still would be very hesitant to put Robinson in my lineup.
It's not 5. It's not 5 and it's not 7. That's all I know about the Vikings.
That's what we're trying to say.
Basic.
One of those Tyler Higbee targets, by the way, was a dropped 62-yard touchdown on a 3rd and 2 in the 4th quarter.
He'll do that to you.
Very, very, very Tyler Higbee. Denny, the Rams backfield, kind of hard to break down because Cam Akers seems to be back in the fold. Darrell Henderson was out-snapped and out-touched heavily by Ronnie Rivers last week, but Darrell Henderson was coming off an illness. Kyren Williams could be making his debut finally this weekend. I'm giving you the impossible task of breaking this down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually pretty upset that I have to do this, but nevertheless, we will try. So Cam Akers is practicing. He's going to practice on Thursday. May or may not be active this week. So the you have 5 guys in the Rams backfield who may or may not be active, and we don't know which combination of those 5 are going to be active. So I think the best thing to do is to see who's going to play, and then determine how the split could go. Now, last week it was all Ronnie Rivers on early downs. It was Malcolm Brown near the goal line. It was Darrell Henderson in passing situations and running the routes. That's ugly. That's really ugly, especially for a team that does not throw the ball. They're among the league leaders in pass rate over expected. They also have a terrible offensive line, not just pass blocking, but run blocking as well, per Pro Football Focus's grades. I don't see any sort of like silver lining or like, well, if that happens, then this guy could go off. I just don't see it with this group. Ronnie Rivers, I don't really care. There's no scenario where I'm starting Ronnie Rivers this week. I guess in PPR, you might be okay, like with Darrell Henderson, if he's out there running all the routes and it's a back and forth or a blowout script again where the Rams have to pass a lot. What I'm saying is I don't know.
The Bucs run defense has taken on a lot of water this year, but
it has.
Yeah, there's just unless we get like a report like Kyren Williams is going to be like the every down player. Like, I just don't see how
he's not activated yet, right?
No, he's not. And even if he is, we're not going to get that report.
So when players are allowed to take their helmets off after that rule change, can they also allow the reporting of these guys are at practice? You have to activate them. They practice. They're designated to return. Put them on the injury report at that point. Why is it a mystery box?
It's an insane loophole. And it will not be. It's going to require like heavy negotiation because coaches will not give back that inch that they were accidentally given. And I'm fully convinced it was just a loophole. But yeah, Rams backfield steer clear. Even with 6 teams on bye, steer clear. with Vegas projecting fewer than 40 points. Actually, that's no longer correct. It has gone up from 39.5 to 40 points since I first wrote this. The former AFC powers New England and Indianapolis meet up in Boston. Patrick Kerrane, what, if anything, do we need to know about this game? Jonathan Taylor did not practice again on Thursday.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing here is that we probably aren't getting Jonathan Taylor. Patriots are very vulnerable to the run. So, Deion Jackson is probably a viable fill-in RB2. Normally, you'd be thinking, okay, you have a potential 3-down workhorse here. But the Colts are 31st in EPA per rush. And Deion Jackson's magic when he previously filled in was all about catching passes. I think that's going to be definitely curtailed with Sam Ehlinger here. When you look at Ehlinger last week, he threw for just 201 yards. He added 15 rushing yards, so it wasn't very exciting. However, he was decently efficient. He was 16th in EPA per play last week, 8th in completion percentage over expected. He gave a similar performance to Geno Smith last week, to Kirk Cousins last week. So he really wasn't that bad. Wasn't that great either. But the bigger issue is how the Colts designed their offense around him. They had a -7% pass rate over expected, 8th lowest of the week. They went very run heavy. We were worried that might happen. They did move away entirely from the quick passing game stuff, which wasn't going to suit Ehlinger, but they didn't necessarily have to go super run heavy. They decided to go that path, which is a problem because they can't run the ball at all with Jonathan Taylor banged up. So, this week, Ehlinger's getting a Patriots defense that ranks 4th in EPA allowed per dropback, 4th in success rate. They actually don't pressure the passer very well, which is almost a bummer for the Colts because the whole reason they switched to Ehlinger is because he can handle pressure and Matt Ryan couldn't. So it's the one thing this quarterback can really do might not really matter here. So it's set up for, I think, kind of a disappointing and not particularly fantasy relevant day for this offense. You're probably playing Deion Jackson if you picked him up as a fill-in starter, but I don't feel good about playing the receivers here. Pittman last week did not leave the field, which was nice because what happened was the Colts, they upped their usage of 2 running back, 2 tight end sets. From weeks 1 through 7, they were at 15% combined in heavy personnel in those 2 sets. That jumped up to 26% last week, which meant more 2 wide receiver sets, less 3 wide receiver sets. Pittman got to stay out there the whole time, but Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce were basically fighting each other for routes, cannibalizing each other's production. Both those guys, I think, have to be on benches this week. But the issue for Pittman is that when Pierce was on the field, they're looking for him. He matched Pittman in first read targets. He ran 8 fewer routes. So they're looking for him at a high rate. They're calling plays designed to get Pierce the ball at a high rate. Pittman's going to run the most routes, but he feels like a flex option to me and not even a great one. On the other side, the Colts pass defense is really bad. They rank 27th in dropback success rate. They don't get to the quarterback, 25th in quick pressure rate. So while this is a really gross setup for the Colts, it's kind of interesting for the Patriots. Maybe they're slightly pass first this week, or at least balanced. That's a nice setup for Jacoby Myers, still very clearly the number 1 option here. He has a 26% target share, 33% air yard share. So I think he's very playable. And then Ramondre Stevenson, unfortunately down to 62% of the snaps last week, still had over 20 expected points though. So not super concerned about him, but I think we have to think about him more in terms of where he was from weeks 2 to 4 before Harris missed. So we have 4 games where Stevenson's now played between 55 and 63% of the snaps, kind of a 1A type to Harris's 1B. In those games, he has 15.1 expected points per game, which is solid. It's kind of like a high-end RB2, I think. He's also been very good this year. He's running back 7 in yards per route run, running back 12 in elusive rating, running back 13 in breakaway yards per game. So talented back, good but not great workload, kind of a high-end RB2, I think.
Teams just insist on making their backfields less effective with committees. It's really, really quite something.
It is something.
Anybody have any Tyquan Thornton love before we move on to the next game?
It's not out there enough. I mean, I know Parker's hurt, so maybe that.
He's not getting targeted at a high rate at all either.
Yeah.
But when he does, he scores.
Yes. So definitely bank on that.
I think that was 3 weeks ago too. Or whatever. No Tyquan Thornton love. I thought this was America. The Minnesota Vikings and Washington Commanders are at least trying to keep things interesting as Daniel Snyder threatens us with a good time in retirement. The Vikings have traded for TJ Hockenson, Patrick Kerrane. I'll begin with the obvious question. What effect will Hockenson's addition have on the Vikings' targets delineation, if any? Will he mostly just absorb Irv Smith's modest lost targets, or is this going to be a bigger role?
Well, I mean, like long term, I think there's a chance he has a bigger role. They traded for him. He's on his 5th-year option next year. He's making over $9 million. And then presumably they'll want to extend him. So they're going to be paying this guy some money. It'd be kind of weird if he just had Smith's old role like long term, but I don't know. Like, how quickly can a tight end ramp up? I do not think
what? He's just catching passes.
No.
He's
Unlike a running back,
they're all
this
machines.
one's really difficult. This one is really
right.
difficult.
This is not like a running back. This is like a real position, right, Pat?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
No, but I actually do think there's something to that idea. I'm like, it's tight end. I think one of the hardest positions, obviously quarterback is going to be the hardest position, but you're being asked to block defensive ends and linebackers, and then you're being asked to run routes like a wide receiver. It's a pretty difficult position. You have to have, I would assume, total mastery of the playbook to play it well. So you have to think he's going to be in a more limited role than he'll eventually be. You also have to consider the fact that Irv Smith only has 58% route participation this season. So like the role that he could be growing into might be smaller than the role he had in Detroit. And, certainly I wouldn't expect him to just get like shoved into a massive role right away. So I think right now, like if you're still thinking about playing Adam Thielen, go ahead and do it. Cause I'm a little bit bearish on how much work Hockenson gets in his first game, just given the split that Irv Smith was already in with Johnny Mundt. I think over the next few weeks, Hockenson's probably going to get like a Noah Fant, Gerald Everett type of route rate. He's out there for like more than half the routes, but less than 70 or something like that. So Johnny Mundt is going to be like maybe a Will Dissly to Hockenson's Noah Fant.
Absolutely love for my team to trade for TJ Hockenson and then have to extend him. This is really something I want my football team to be doing. Not ideal. Let's have the Chase Claypool debate here real quick with regards to Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen only has 2 touchdowns so far this year, so has not been living up to his role we expect is like a touchdown dunker in the red zone. Do we think TJ Hockenson can maybe actually make life easier for Adam Thielen, or we don't like the increased robustness of the target competition?
Father Time is the only one capable of making life easier for Adam Thielen, and as I have checked, it is not 2019. So Adam Thielen just he's 32 years old. He's got his worst yards per route run, his worst
all of his worst years of his life are ahead of him.
Every efficiency metric says he's falling off the cliff. So that's why I'm actually a little optimistic for Hockenson.
Worst years of his life.
32, you're done. I mean, this is how it is.
I got a few more in me then. I'm all right with that.
Kyle's the only one who's already not on the downward slope on this show.
Yeah, your guys' yards per route run is garbage. I'm looking at all your guys' stats. Garbage. It's not good. That's the only reason I have optimism for TJ Hockenson long term, though, is like maybe they just view him as sort of a second receiver because Adam Thielen should be the tight end on this team, and he should be the Johnny Mundt of this team, not even the Irv Smith.
Wow.
Yikes. Guys, we're all Denny, you have something to say?
I said, sorry, Adam, if you're listening.
We're all trying to find the guy who deleted the Commanders prompts for this game. We have no set topic. So this is a Washington Commanders.
Well, I pulled up track changes as an interesting feature on Google Docs. I don't see any deletion there.
Track change actually it famously doesn't work a lot. Actually, so we forgot. By we, I mean me. Forgot any Washington Commanders prompts for this game. So it's just kind of an open forum. Talk about the Washington Commanders if anyone wants to. Terry McLaurin's 8th in receiving yardage since Taylor Heineke took over quarterback. I feel like probably not a great sign for your offense when your number 2 quarterback instantly makes your number 1 receiver more productive, but also very, very good for fantasy managers.
He's an air yards monster, Terry McLaurin, over the past two weeks, which is good. I don't know.
Denny, you
also
seem
winning
almost
the game single-handedly.
You almost have a funeral tone, Denny, as you were talking about Terry McLaurin.
I mean, I'm looking up numbers as we speak. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely like Heineke is definitely an upgrade for McLaurin, a downgrade for Curtis Samuel. Logan Thomas is simply not a thing for fantasy.
Figment of imagination.
Yeah, I mean, they split the routes 3 ways between the tight ends last week, and Ron Rivera spent the last couple of days talking up Armani Rogers, who is a person. It was a real player.
Interesting.
Plays,
Cole Turner's already been canceled.
Tight end.
I don't know if he played last week. He got in a limited practice to start the week, but it's a tight end mess. J.D. McKissic back-to-back DNPs. It looks like he won't be. I mean, back-to-back DNPs is a pretty bad sign. That's all I'm going on. But we saw it last week. It looked like Antonio Gibson had maybe flipped into the passing game role. I'm guessing we would find out later that it's because of the injury.
Man.
But it doesn't matter how it happened, as much as we know Antonio Gibson will get that passing game role if McKissic doesn't play. That's modestly interesting because he's also.
I think that's highly relevant.
Yeah, he's also splitting work with Brian Robinson as a runner, and he looks more effective every time he touches the ball. So if you're getting it could be like a Ramondre Stevenson light level workload, which is a good workload.
Robinson was also down to a 25% snap share last week, which is actually his lowest of the season, even lower than the 28% he debuted with. So they may be reconsidering this whole Brian Robinson thing, because Brian Robinson has been really, really bad. In every rushing metric, every receiving metric, there is no signs of hope here in terms of what Brian Robinson has done so far. It just is not. It's just been straight up bad. And Gibson has been so good that you'd have to think now, the fact that J.D. McKissic was playing a lot last week over Gibson is just a reminder that this coaching staff does not want it to be Gibson, but it should be.
Yeah. 40% target share for the Washington running backs combined last week against the Colts. So if all of that goes to Gibson, I'm saying that's a good thing. That's a positive development for our guy Antonio Gibson.
Kerrane, I thought you were saying it was a reminder that this coaching staff is not good at all.
This is one of those things, and I feel like if you're in the takes business, this is one of those type of takes that you should never make, what I'm about to do right now, because I don't think this is a good coaching staff, but I think it's an okay coaching staff, and I feel like
what you think is that Scott Turner's probably an okay.
Yeah, that's what
Scott Turner does some good stuff.
I think he does some good stuff. When they go run heavy, they still are fairly balanced on first down. They use motion. They do some interesting things. He's had Taylor Heineke as his quarterback for most of 2 seasons now. So I
it's
have
true.
a little defensive.
I feel like the way, I don't know why I'm cutting you off. Sorry about that. The macro decisions strike me as really, really poor all the time. When they commit to some macro direction, Scott Turner then does a good job with the micro decisions.
That's right. Yeah. The micro decisions look pretty good to me.
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. And Scott Turner, who got the job because he was a Norville Turner's son, will continue to remain an offensive coordinator after this commander staff is inevitably fired. So he will be still calling plays.
Well, that's just DNA. Okay, you're arguing against the strength of.
Well, in this case, I mean, I'm not saying nepotism's good, but it worked this way.
Well, wait till Jeff Bezos' son is calling the plays in 2 years.
Oh boy,
it's gonna be quite something.
Coming up, does he have sons?
I don't think he does. He doesn't seem like one of those people that ever have kids. He does. I doubt he has kids. That wasn't optimized.
I got anxiety dealing with the generation of the next Bezos is in my life.
No, he didn't. That wasn't optimizing. So he didn't have a kid. It wasn't optimization.
Okay, got it.
So coming off 2 of the worst performances by any team all season, the Raiders and Jaguars meet up in something called TIAA Bank Stadium, with the Raiders catching 1.5 points on the road. Kyle, why should we give one single hoot about this game?
Josh Jacobs, as I think Kerrane pointed out last week, we were due for some regression. We got it in spades. We got all 3 or 4 weeks worth.
I don't know if you can call that regression so much as the end of everything good in this life.
Yeah. I don't know if it was that bad. I mean, it was bad, but Josh Jacobs scoring touchdowns isn't all that matters. Although it sounds like it might be one of the few things keeping roofs over the houses of your children.
No, thankfully, no Josh Jacobs exposure.
Josh Jacobs, it was the equivalent of him turning 32 last.
I'm thinking you would have wanted Josh Jacobs exposure. He had 500 yards in the past 3 games before last week. And last week, the usage was still awesome. 100% of the running back carries, plus 4 targets. Amir Abdullah popped up for 5 targets, but 3 of those came from Jared Stidham. 4 of them came in the 4th quarter. That tells you what you need to know about that usage. So
we need to get the words Jared and Stidham edited out of this podcast, by the way.
They feel highly relevant, sir. We may not have seen the last of him if the Raiders do this one again. This doesn't look like one of those games, but they've had some dumpsters this year. So I still think we're in for 3 downs of Josh Jacobs, and it's a game where it actually has a high total and they're favored. So nothing can be as bad as last week, but it looks like not only that, but actually a good spot. Hunter Renfrow, 10% target share, 63% of the snaps since returning. Last week, he still continued to not play the full suite of downs. But to be fair, it is mostly Matt Collins getting in for passing downs. He's still running plenty of routes, but when he's on the field, he just doesn't earn targets. So I'm not too concerned with snaps as much as just his poor target share, his poor air yard share, which is also 10%, because doesn't move the ball downfield. So if we get Darren Waller back, that'd even be more of a reason to not play any of the non-Devontae Adams receivers. Even if we don't, I'd honestly just rather play Matt Collins and hope for a big play, because you're not getting that from Renfrow.
Man, oh man. How was the only thing that got Josh McDaniels away from Bill Belichick was sparking Matt Collins' career? I still don't understand why this was the goal, and why this is clearly the only reason he took the Raiders job, so he could sign Matt Collins and revive his career.
And then not pick up Josh Jacobs' fifth-year option and ride him the whole season.
You joke, but this whole Raiders staff talked about Matt Collins like he was their number one receiver in the summer. Like they were like, I don't know about Devontae, but this guy Mac.
We like Devontae's ability to draw coverage from Matt Collins, which is the end game. At the end of the universe, when it's slowly dying of a heat death, you'll see Matt Collins trotting into the end zone.
We love our heat death, don't we, folks?
We love it. It's one of the only things we have left coming for us. Other side of the ball, Travis Etienne.
Oh my God, I forgot we had to talk about the Jaguars.
Etienne's cool.
Heat death going on there for sure.
Man. Etienne's fun, though. We do have one reprieve from the Jags being the Jags that they've always been. Travis Etienne, 75% of Jacksonville's carries last week. Also saw 6 or 7 red zone attempts, all 4 of the rush attempts inside the 5. He's doing the 3-down thing. He's really efficient. We're very pleased with it. The receivers, the pecking order is tightening. We really have not a strong conviction on Christian Kirk or Zay Jones, probably even less of Zay Jones over Marvin Jones. They've all been bunched together so far. The passing attack has been struggling. So you're probably starting one of them, Christian Kirk. I wouldn't move past that. Evan Engram, an 18% target share, 19% air yard share on the year. Tight end's bad. You're ranking him as a tight end 1. It feels gross, but get him in there.
I picked him up and I dropped TJ Hockenson. This is a small league that probably able to get Hockenson back, but I literally just dropped TJ Hockenson, picked up Evan Engram because I think he's a much better starting option this week. Much better.
Sure.
Yeah. He's unfortunately the cover boy he's the picture choice for the tight end column in the rankings this week, Evan Engram. So making a stunning debut as the picture choice.
He's sixth in tight end routes in the whole league.
Yeah, I kind of saw this coming. It's pretty much empty garbage volume, but it is consistent empty garbage.
Yeah, that's
volume.
my favorite kind of volume.
It is.
Well, the Travis Etienne stuff, I just want to highlight a little bit just how exciting this is. We have a bona fide, Travis Etienne is having the type of season where he could be the 102 next year in drafts. He's having an incredible fantasy season. It's all coming together. He had an 80% snap share 2 weeks ago, 79% last week. He's running back 2 in rush yards over expected per attempt. He's running back 3 in success rate, running back 5 in breakaway yards per game. The dude is he's looking like a superstar. This is exactly the fantasy profile that you want. It's very, very exciting. He's, got kind of an elite option right now.
Well, I was told he could not average 8 yards per carry in the NFL like he did at Clemson, and he is. That's because that's a really, really sticky stat, his yards per carry from college to the NFL. No takers on this joke at all.
Well, I'm just, I'm still tilted by Najee Harris going. Are we muted?
I was muted. I was laughing. I just wanted to
thank you. And by the way, Urban Meyer wanted Travis Etienne to be a 3rd down back.
He did. But the NFL decided that Najee Harris was better, which still tilts me.
Wow.
It is quite tilting. And it's also tilting that we're out of stuff to talk about. That is the end of our show. Google, if you're listening, you need to fix the track changes feature because these Commanders prompts were in there and they're just gone and no one can find them.
I never actually checked. You might have put the.
I actually never checked either. I'm pretty sure they weren't there. pretty sure I just forgot to do it and they were not there. So we had some good Commanders talk despite ourselves. We talked Commanders. Since we talk everything at this website, we talk everything at Rotoworld. Kyle and Pat talk everything in their Friday DFS chat. Denny talks everything in his funnels column. Talk everything in my rankings column. Kerrane's walkthrough comes out on Friday. Kyle's an article, 32 stats, comes out earlier in the week. Check it all out, even with 6 teams on bye. A bottomless well of information this week. So yeah, thanks for reading. Thanks for listening. For Denny Carter, for Patrick Kerrane, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. We will catch you later.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.